Hello, my name is Tina Shigota, and I'm teaching assistant at the Faculty of Economics. And today I'm going to present the topic of understanding consumers. The whole presentation, the whole course is based on 5 key points. Seeing consumers in the marketplace, where we give a brief introduction into consumer behavior, shopping, buying, and evaluating. Different perceptions of consumers and how they influence the consumption, how the consumers decide on what to buy and what not to buy, and how their learning process is influenced by their perceptions and some internal and external factors. How is their consumption influenced by different social groups, and lastly, how does the culture influence how they see how they see products, and how they consume. At the beginning, there are several theories that look at the consumption, and consumption is actually a process that started with consumers being perceived as very rational, and that they are going to maximize the utility and maximize their needs by buying the products. However, in the recent years, we saw that decision-making and consumption is actually really an unconscious process, which is influenced by numerous factors. There are several phases in decision-making process. From the start, we recognize that we have a problem, or we have a need, or we have a certain wish. Then we start looking for information internally and externally. After thinking that we have enough information, we evaluate the alternatives, we make the final decision and buy the product or service. And after that, after the purchase, we evaluate whether or not we were satisfied and our expectations were met. The behavior after purchase is actually the word of mouth in recommending the product to others and thinking or deciding whether or not to use it again. When we, as production company or advertising company, when we want to address our consumers, we need to know who are we talking to. So we always do market segmentation. It is really important that we know that people within the group that we are addressing are going to be as similar as possible, but between the group they are going to be different as possible. It is really important that we have a large amount of people that are similar in certain ways that we can address to make it profitable. They have to be reached by different marketing tools, and of course the responsiveness to what we are saying to them has to be according to what we plan for them. However, consumers have a really selective perception. Nowadays, we know that we live in a really technological world where there is a lot of information and we cannot absorb everything. So we have a selective exposure, our attention is really selective, and our distortion is again really selective because we cannot process everything. This selection is also based on how we want to be seen by others and how we want to perceive ourselves, where by buying or consuming the product or service, we are matching what we think that the brand will enable us to become to our personality, to our image, the one that we want to think about ourselves and the one that we want to portray to others. And this is the concept of the self-congruity. And how we think about ourselves, our image, is also a part of how we look for information. These are the internal information, our internal image. However, it is also influenced by the external information search. Externally is everything that is not intrinsic, that comes from outside, where advertising and marketing play a really important role. In order to be really successful in what we are saying and what we are trying to address to our consumers, we have to give them a story. The story will help us to describe and to enhance brand's personality, to use some heroes and desires that we grew up with. It will give our give us a chance not to directly sell our product, but to portray to the consumers that their needs and wishes are going to be met by using our products. Stories usually are based on authenticity, uniqueness, emotions, and this is what consumers value, and this is how also they use the stories in order to remember our products and our services. An example of a really good story is the campaign by Dove, which decided not to use the models and to enhance different body images, but to say that real beauty comes within us and from us, and that we can be as unique as possible in order to be beautiful, and we can do that by using Dove products. The other story is in Airbnb, the business model that is there, which is actually connecting people around the world through renting different apartments in different places from people to people without any intermediaries in between and without having to stay in a hotel, which is costly and pricey if we don't want to. The next big story is The Best Job in the World, where the advertising people decided to take all the budget and give it to a person who is going to take care of the island and publish about the life at the island in Queensland. And this was a really successful story because a lot of people were actually participating in competing for the job that was called the best job in the world, just lying on the beach for 6 months and posting about their lives. Last but not least, it is the campaign of Croatia, Full of Life, which decided to emphasize that when you're in Croatia, it is your time off and you are not, you don't have to worry and work. When we talk about consumption, there is the peer pressure that we are always trying to not to think about, but we are influenced by it. We have different reference groups that impact our consumption. The influence is informal, utilitarian, and value expressive, and based on different information on how we want to be perceived by others or what values and our belonging we want to accomplish is how we consume services. There is also the social media, where lastly we can participate on our own to co-create the brand image or the product image and be a part of the peer-to-peer conversation. Also, there is the culture. Culture is what we see as a part of our socialization and tradition that we cannot influence. The trends that are created and the technological changes that also influence our consumption, where we are partially a part of the global consumerism, but last but not least, also we are so individualist that these two have to be met. Just a few examples. This is how, for example, a myth in the Christian world can be used in order to enhance product evaluation or product consumption, but for example, this will not work in another setting, for example, African or Chinese culture. This is one example on how whenever you are trying to address different type of consumers, have to match the product to their culture, to their needs and their consumption. But last but not least, the best way to sell your products is actually to adapt to the markets and adapt to your consumers, and this is how McDonald's have the whole system of adapting to the cultural needs and food consumption, regardless of their primary product being selling hamburgers.